you guys, this is Unit 5, Segment 2, Meiosis. It happens to line up with Chapter 11, Section 4 in the book. Your key vocabulary, and you may want to write this down, is gamete, haploid, diploid, homologous pair, and tetrad, meiosis, crossing over, and the law or principle of independent assortment. Here we go. Meiosis is defined as the process for which one cell divides and becomes 4 daughter cells. This is your sex cell formation. Sex cells are called gametes. Each daughter cell has half the number of chromosomes, which is very different from the process of mitosis. With mitosis, you end up with 2 cells that are genetically identical. But with meiosis, there's 4 daughter cells, and they are not genetically identical. You may want to write down gametes. The definition of gametes is the sex cells. Meiosis, just as an overview, you don't have to write anything down for this slide, but I just wanted to show you what it looks like. You have 2 sets of divisions, so meiosis 1 and meiosis 2. If you remember PMAT, that acronym from mitosis, there's 2 rounds of PMAT that occur with meiosis. So you have your normal interphase part of the cell cycle where you have G1, S, and G2, so cell growth, DNA replication, and then a little bit more growth and doubling of the organelles. That happens in interphase. Then it enters into prophase. You have your nuclear membrane that disappears. You have your centrioles that are going to start to move to the poles, forming your spindle fibers. But here, this is where it's different than mitosis. Here you have the partners lining up of chromosomes. See how they partnered up? One of these chromosomes came from your mom, one of them came from your dad, and they'll partner up in their normal pairs. So there's 23 pairs for humans. They line up along the equator. So middle meta, you can still remember middle meta. They're lining up, but instead of a single line of chromosomes like mitosis, we have a doubled up chromosomes there. They're matching their partner. Homologous pairs is the vocabulary word. Anyways, anaphase is still represented by ripping apart, but it's not ripping apart the chromosome. It's actually ripping apart the homologous pair. It's separating the pairs to the different sides. Telophase is still, you've got the cleaving in and the cytokinesis happening and the reformation of the nuclear membrane. So some of this stuff is really the same as mitosis, but then we have some very big differences. But we're not done. The partners have divided, have separated. Now we need to separate the actual chromosomes, very similar to mitosis. So you have prophase 2, where you have the disappearing of the nuclear membrane. Metaphase is the now single chromosomes lining up in the center, just like what we had in mitosis. And then anaphase is ripping it apart at the centromere. And then we have, not 2 cells, but now we have 4 daughter cells, and they have half the number of chromosomes. So they're very, very different from mitosis, but yet still has some similarities there with the PMAT. Haploid means half of the amount of DNA. So humans have 46 total chromosomes, but your sex cells can only have half. And the reason for that is because your sperm and the egg, when they come together to make a complete cell, you have to have 46 chromosomes when that happens. So 23 from the sperm, 23 from the egg, come together making 46 total chromosomes for the zygote. So that means sex cells have to have half the number. And this goes across the board for any species on the planet. Diploid, di, means 2. So diploid cells have 2 sets of chromosomes. They're doubled the chromosomes. So we have 46. Half came from the sperm, half came from the egg. So if you think about it, half came from dad, half came from mom, and all of your body cells that are made from that zygote, skin, muscle, blood, nerve, all of these body cells have 46 chromosomes and are considered diploid because they have a partner, one from mom, one from dad. But the sex cells only have 1 copy, and those are haploid. Okay? So all of your cells in your body, except your sex cells, are diploid. All right, we're going to go through the phases of meiosis, one at a time. I just want you to know that interphase does occur. If you remember the pie chart with the cell cycle, 3/4 of the pie, 3/4 of the time, the cell is growing and copying its DNA. G1, S, and G2. Those things are still happening with meiosis. Then we enter into PMAT. And so what I'm going to recommend you do is, along the side in your notes, I want you to draw this diagram of the cell just to show what it's looking like, okay? Make sure you pay careful attention to the details because this is different than mitosis. So notice how the chromosomes are kind of together in partners, okay? You should draw that on your sheet that way. So prophase 1, as a heading, has the homologous chromosomes pairing up. Homologous means, homo means same, so these are the same chromosome, one from mom, one from dad. They partner up, they find their partner, and they do a little dance. That partnership is called a tetrad. So homologous chromosomes form a tetrad. These are new vocab words. Sometimes it gets messy in this game, and the legs of the chromosomes kind of cross over each other, and so we'll talk more at the end of the notes what crossing over actually means, but I want you to show that prophase 1, this is where crossing over is actually occurring. The nuclear membrane, just like prophase with mitosis, nuclear membranes begin to disappear. Chromosomes become visible. They were chromatin, now they're chromosomes. Metaphase middle, you have the lining up, the doubled partners lining up in the middle. Notice how they're together with their partner. Spindle fibers attached. What's missing in this diagram is the centrioles. You should draw them in, but they're the centrioles there that are attached to the spindle fibers. Anaphase, you have the spindle fibers pulling, ripping apart the homologous pairs. They're not ripping apart the chromosome, they're ripping apart the pairs in the first round of division. Telophase, same thing. You got if it's a plant cell, you have a cell wall that's being formed. You have the chromosomes and the nuclear membrane reforms. But here we have the end of the first division, you have 2 diploid daughters. So they have 46, I'm sorry, that should be haploid. They only have 23 chromosomes at this time. That's a mistake. Haploid, error, haploid. They do have half the number of chromosomes. Prophase 2 has the nuclear membrane, so you have chromatin, and it starts to reform and form the chromosome, and you have the nuclear membrane beginning to disappear. But how many cells do we have? 2. When we start the next round of division, we have 2. Metaphase, same thing, lining up in the middle, but not with their pairs. They're lining up as individual chromosomes. This, you guys, matches the metaphase of mitosis. This is similar, but the difference is you've got 2 cells now involved. They're not in their homologous pairs. They're not tetrads. Anaphase is where you're splitting the chromosome now at the centromere. Very much matches the mitosis. Your number of chromosomes cut in half. Telophase and cytokinesis 2, the nuclear membrane will reform again, similar to mitosis. Cytoplasm divides. Now we have 4 haploid, or lowercase n, daughter cells. 4 of them. They're not genetically identical. They're very different in genetic material. But the key is that with meiosis, in the end result, you have 4 genetically different haploid daughter cells. Just as a recap, you don't have to write this down. Just as a recap, you have interphase and then PMAT, and then PMAT again. So during interphase, you have growth and DNA replication. During the first round of PMAT, you have the separation of the homologous pairs. Okay, they're splitting. And then the second round of PMAT, the individual chromosomes are actually splitting at the centromere. So the second round actually resembles mitosis a little bit more. The results of meiosis, though, are 2 sets of division, okay? There's 2 divisions. There's 2 PMAT rounds. And you end with not 2, but 4 genetically different cells with half the number of chromosomes. Half haploid, okay? And they're genetically different daughter cells. I told you that we talk about crossing over. Crossing over, this is what it actually looks like, and this is happening in the first prophase of the first division. You have the homologous chromosomes finding each other and lining up next to each other. Sometimes their legs will cross over, and what happens is it breaks off where that cross is, and then they reattach. See this blue chromosome, which may have come from dad, and the red chromosome, which may have come from mom, your mom. they cross over, and so you end up with a little bit of mom's DNA on dad's chromosome, right? So, and you end up with a little bit of dad's DNA on mom's chromosome. So what this does, guys, is it shakes it up a little bit. It provides more genetic variation for the next generation. Remember, we're making sex cells. This is going to be what builds the next generation. So amazingly enough, nature has provided a mechanism to really shake up the traits. So another reason why you don't look exactly like your mom and you don't look exactly like your dad. I mean, you can think of it as basic terms like that. There's more reasons for that, but. Okay, the law of independent assortment says that the tetrads, or the homologous pairs, will line up randomly. So for example, if we say that mom, what you got from your mom, you get, remember, homologous pairs are a partnership. This chromosome codes for the same traits as this chromosome. Listen carefully to this explanation, okay? So this chromosome right here, this big one, codes for the same traits as this chromosome right here. Now, your normal body cells will have a copy of each. But when you make eggs and when you make sperm, you now are going to eliminate the fact that you have two variations of it, okay? So let's just pretend that this blue color right here is coding for the gene for blue eyes. And then this darker part of this chromosome is coding for brown eyes. Brown is going to mask the blue, so this individual would actually show brown eyes. And this other chromosome here, we're going to say blue comes from dad, so dad is coding for, dad's gene chromosome that he gave you codes for red hair, and mom codes for black hair. So brown eyes, black hair are the traits that your mom gave you, and your dad gave you blue eyes and red hair. Well, blue eyes and red hair are recessive, so you're not showing that, but that's a different story. Now, here's the thing. Once these two divisions take place, you end up with, if they line up like this, you end up with a sex cell that can have this combination: blue eyes, red hair, brown eyes, and black hair. But if instead, during metaphase 1, they lined up like this with mom on this side, dad on this side, but dad on this side and mom on this side for these chromosomes, the fact that they independently assort themselves, meaning not all dads are going to line up on the right and not all mom's chromosomes are going to line up on the left, you end up shaking up the variety a little bit more. So not only does crossing over create more variety, so does the law of independent assortment. You have it can go either way. It can go dad's on this side or dad's on this side, mom's on this side. So it shuffles and shakes it up, and then when you get in the end result, you get a mix of possibilities for, and by the way, each of these are sperm, okay, or they're egg. If you're female, these would be the eggs. If it's male, these would be the sperm. And it's not showing you all of the possibilities either, by the way, because we know that through meiosis, four sex cells are made, okay, not just two. So there's a little problem with this model. But it does do a good job of showing you that it can line up with moms on one side and dads on the other and flip-flop, and it's just totally random who gets placed on what side. That is called the law of independent assortment. All right, questions for you. A couple of just like review questions. This will tell you if you really understand haploid and diploid. So if an organism has a diploid number, diploid number of 18, okay, what is the haploid number? So what this is saying is that an organism, a species, may have 18 total chromosomes. But the haploid number in their sex cells would be half of that. Haploid half. So the answer is the organism would have sex cells that have 9. It can't have 18 because if sperm had 18 and egg had 18, now you end up with 36 with this new individual, and that's not possible. That would be a totally different species. So every cell should have 18. That means the sex cells need to have half that number. So when they do come together, they make a complete 18. So number 2, if an egg cell has 7 chromosomes for a species, if it has 7, how many chromosomes would a skin cell have for that organism? So remember, eggs are haploid. They have half the chromosomes. So if the egg has 7,